Happy Thursday and welcome to TipRanks News Bites. I'm Ari Gutman, and our top news bites for today, July 7th, the markets have reacted very positively following the release of the Federal Reserve's F.O.M.C meeting minutes. But more economic data is on its way today. A surprising announcement from GameStop sends its stock soaring. And finally, back on a global front, millions are placed back under lockdown in China as COVID cases flare up once again. So kicking us off today and getting right to it, the market's reaction following the Federal Reserve's release of the F.O.M.C meeting minutes from their June policy setting meeting. Leading up to the minutes being released just yesterday, all three major indexes were quite choppy, but following all three composites rose, from the S&P inching up by roughly 0.4%, the Dow by 0.2%, the Nasdaq by 0.4% as well. Now get this, come evening hours, all three of those composites traded even higher. The Fed's minutes gave way to policymakers' stance that a more restrictive approach would be suitable if inflation isn't contained, even if that results in the economy slowing down. Now, 2% inflation was seen as critical to Fed officials, and they're pointing to a 50 to 75 basis point rate hike come July. Investors seem to be comforted with the minutes, and as for today, fresh economic data will be pouring out on the table, from data on U.S. imports and exports detailing the trade gap, whereas trade deficit is expected to come in around $84.7 billion in May. That shrunk from April's deficit of $87.1 billion. Now we're also going to get the unemployment data today, where economists are expecting a tight labor market, and we're forecasting 230,000 new unemployment applications, which is in line with prior weeks. As for where we stand right now, this news may not be all that exciting to digest this economic data, but it certainly is important, so be sure to keep your eyes on the economic calendar. Now, if you thought the GameStop stock news was all a thing of the past and just kept to 2020, with their sky highs of launching to $347 a share, GameStop is back in the news and soaring in after-hours trading yesterday. Perhaps not as exciting as the once 130+% increase, but they've announced a 4-to-1 stock split that will take effect later this month. GameStop stock jumped by 7.5%, and investors, I would assume, are remaining very curious as to whether or not we're going to experience another surge from GameStop. However, we all must remain aware that stock splits do not actually change a company's valuation. So even as exciting as this news can be, just make sure you're doing your due diligence. And of course, there's no better place to do that due diligence than right on TipRanks, whether it's tipranks.com or downloading our app. And finally, on our global news front, millions are back under a strict lockdown throughout China as the nation experiences another fresh outbreak of COVID-19. This all comes not even a week after announcing reopenings and loosening those COVID-19 restrictions. Now, China has a zero COVID policy, so officials do respond in kind with intensity. It's certainly taking its toll on all those forced into the lockdowns and stifling the country's GDP. Now, the bigger question here is, how is this impacting all of us? And economically speaking, it hinders economic progress globally and creates ripple effects on global supply chains, which have been far too strained and for far too long. Now, Tip Rankers, that's our news for today. Be sure to stay up to date, stay informed, and of course, always stay connected by tuning in to TipRanks TV, all the shows you just cannot afford to miss. And until next time, thank you for tuning in.